The Bible. Is it hard to understand?
When it comes to reading the Bible, the first thing that comes to mind is the fact that this is the Word of God.
The seals have been broken, and the truth is here.
And when we go throughout the scriptures, when we go throughout extra biblical records, we find that the language that God employed, that He used to create the heavens and the earth, was the Hebrew language.
Christ said, I came for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. But yet no one, no religious leader, no religious church out there anywhere can now identify the 12 tribes of Israel. Can we? God is quite simple, but it seems as if man makes understanding Him hard.
What are those mysteries?
The truth of your book and the truth will make you free. The Hebrew and Bible Academy, you're invited.
You think you controlling me? You thought that I would stay your slave? Ain't no strings on me. Oh no, controlling us with your frequencies, making it so hard to get away. You can do what you wanna do. Tap our phones, we know you're listening. You can think how you wanna think now, but you can't stop us. The truth is rising. To lose, we refuse. I will go down without a fight. You think that I can't say, hey, what you doing to me? You cannot defeat me. My hand on your heel, I'm pulling through. A step ahead of you. You think that I can't see? You know how about with me.
About to turn this up a notch, see what it's been into you and shot like electrical currents, so current leaving you paralyzed. And this truth is so amplified while your ego's reducing size. We a menace to your society, taking your kingdom violently. Pick a paddle to the battle, we can be in the valley of an alley. Get the matter, it's a matter of time. They gonna what we done, if you do the Messiah. I run the race until I finish. How your power giving me the ability. Chosen people with no other one mystery. We won't stop.
You think I can't say, hey, what you doing to me? You cannot defeat me. My hand on your heel, I'm pulling through. A step ahead of you. You think that I can't see? You know how your power's with me. How your power's with me.
All right, family, shalom. Shalom, shalom, shalom. Before we get into it, let me make sure everything is good as far as the sound and the video. And with your confirmation, we'll jump right into it. But first, I want to make sure that all is well. Also, I want to see who we have in the building, so go ahead as you're confirming that everything is good. Go ahead, put your city and your state in the chat. We can go ahead and give you a shout out. If you're representing a particular body, you can put that in there as well, and we'll make sure that we shout that out as well. All right. Okay, we got some confirmation that all is well. Shalom to Elder Dale. The water for your assistance in the chat. Shalom as well to you brothers and sisters who are tuning in, as well as those who will happen upon this in the future. All right, so let's see who we have with us. I know we got Elder Dale. Shalom to Elder Dale. I see Maria GOCC ATL. Obvious representing the ATL. Shalom. All right, I see Sister Dawn Jackson also representing ATL. We got Yolanda Hicks. True Hebrew. Happy Sabbath GOCC. Khan. We are entering the Sabbath. In fact, I'm going to try to keep this to a minimum. Still got some running around to do before the Sabbath comes in. So let me go ahead, give a few shout outs, make some announcements, answer one or two questions on this side, and then afterwards we'll jump to the other side. All right, let's see who we have. We got Justin Hemsley representing the GOCC Las Vegas body. Shalom to you and the family out there in Las Vegas. Who else we got here? We got Hebrew Views and World News. We got Gerline Sarah Israel. Shalom to you. We got Frida Y. Solomon Yasha Allah Judah. Who else we have here? We got Ak Dawada Benjamite. Zion's daughter of Bunyamyan, tribe of Benjamin. Shalom to you. All right, we got Talathia 1272. Damon Hammond. Ak Yatazayab. Who else? We got LaJacqueline, representing the city of Detroit. Shalom to you, Sister LaJacqueline. We got daughter Zion Aurora. We got Amya 1247 Akmalakya Hawada. I believe that brother is coming from the UK. Shalom to you and the family out there in the United Kingdom. We got Akdawada Benjamite representing Houston, Texas. Shalom to you and the family out there in Houston. We got Sister Yolanda Hicks out of Chicago. Who else we got here? We got Michael Summers, Buffalo, New York. All right. Okay, daughter of Zion Aurora, representing Minnesota. We got, who's that? Lindsay. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correct. Lindsay, I'm going to say Oakland, California. Shalom to you and the family out there in Oakland. Shalom to the whole family out there in California. Pray that you're doing well and keeping your head up, especially those who are experiencing the tragedy of the fires. We got John King from Memphis, Tennessee. Shalom to you and the family out there in Memphis, Tennessee. We got Donald H. from Stockton, Montana. Shalom to you and the family. We got Seeking Yahuwah and Yahusha Hamashiach, representing Boston. Shalom to you and the family out there in Boston. We got 4110007. I can't even say that name. I'm sorry. I can't say the other part of your name. It just don't feel right. But nonetheless, you representing the NO, New Orleans. Shalom to you. All right. Pray that you and the family are well. Pray that you all are ready to enter into the Sabbath. You got everything set, ready to go and rest. Tomorrow, we got Hadara Yasha Allah. All right. Shalom to you, Jay Negron. All right. Hayward, California. We got Deacon Yakad, Cincinnati, also representing the family out there in Kentucky. Shalom to you, Deacon Yakad. All right. We got Kevin Israel. We got R, NYC. Okay. All right. Who else we got here? We got Ari Pekka, 2000, Hudson, Florida. All right. Columbus, Ohio body. Rhea Yadiah. Shalom to you. All right. Frida representing Greenville, South Carolina. We got Shonda representing North Carolina. Khalaya Thanaya from Youngstown, Ohio. All right. Let me give one more. Let's see. We got Jackie Clark, Alexandria, Louisiana. Last but not least, we got X-Ray Tron representing the Philadelphia body, representing the hometown. Shalom to you. All right. Shalom, shalom. I pray that you all are well. And with that, let's jump into it. All right. As I mentioned, I'm not going to be here too long. Okay. Let me give a few more shout outs here. I see we got Truth Spitters representing Edmonton. I believe that's what, Canada? What's that? We got Maccabee of Yahawada representing Spain. I want to get into it, but I see so many interesting places here in the chat that I want to show some love to the four corners of the earth, the family in the four corners of the earth. So for anyone I wasn't able to shout out exclusively, individually, shalom to you, your family. I pray that you all are well and are prepped and ready to enter into this Sabbath. Shalom. Yes, we are dealing with a Friday check-in for Patreon, in which we will be answering doctrinal questions. As always, I'll answer one or two questions on this side before we transition over to the other side. But before we do anything, I want to make sure that we first make some announcements for not just this current academy in which we are coming to a close. As the saying goes, all good things must come to an end, and we are coming to an end of this current academy. We are entering into week number 11. And in this week, we're going to be touching on a lesson titled Hell, the Judgment for Rebellion. So that's going to be a very powerful, very insightful lesson. So for those who are currently in the academy, you are in for a treat. For those who are looking forward for the next academy, let me pull that up real quick. For those who are looking forward for the next academy, we are coming live and direct this coming month, February 16th. I just want to pull it up real quick so you all can see it along with me. And also, we're going to show some of the breakdowns we're going to be dealing with in this up and coming academy. So let's get this real quick. All right. All right, there we go. All right, so let me get this up so you all can see it. All right, is that it? That's not it. All right, 1 second. Okay, that is it. Okay, let me just zoom out just a little bit. Let me zoom it out. All right, 1 second. All right, there we go. All right, so as you can see, the Up and Coming Academy starts February 16th. In the Academy, we're going to be covering the original Hebrew language, right? We're going to try to get some on-the-ground news and interviews from around the world. This past Academy, we were able to do quite a few interviews. We had our good brother, Dr. Goodman. We've had Elder Ariah, who brought forth some very key information when it comes to preparation in the end times. Dr. Goodman came through and gave some real good information and insight when it comes to herbs, medicines, and home remedies and various things we can do to get our health together on the natural side of things. We had our brother Raphael, Officer Raphael, who came through and gave us some very good information when it comes to working out, getting in shape, what it takes to get your regiment going. And this last week, we had our dear brother, Damon Wilson, who came through, gave some very powerful information as far as what he thinks concerning some of the various topics, some of the hot topics that are going on right now within the realm of Hollywood and otherwise. So for those who are in the Academy, again, you got a very good treat. You still are in store for some very good treats when it comes to this current Academy. But as I mentioned, we do have a Academy up and coming February 16th. That will be a Sunday. Some of the lessons that we will be covering under the next Academy, in which the theme is the War of the Gods. The War of the Gods. So some of the lessons we're going to be breaking down are the origin of angels. We're going to get into the detail of the classification of the various angels that are documented both in the Bible, as well as some of the extra biblical records. We're going to go into when they were created, why they were created, and some of the actual functions of these angels. We also have the reason why Adam fell. As the elder mentioned this past Wednesday, a lot of time we like to focus on Eve's role in the fall. And yes, Eve played a very important role in the fall of mankind, but we also have to put forward where Adam went wrong, right? We have to remember that when Adam was judged, the Most High made it clear to Adam why it is he fell. And that even though Eve partook of the fruit initially, still Adam had a responsibility. And because he fell in that responsibility, the Most High held him accountable for what he did, or rather what he did not do in the face of temptation. So we're going to touch on that in the up and coming Academy. Again, the reason Adam fell. We also have the true understanding of the Antichrist. Many of you coming into the truth, you may have initially come out of the Christian church, in which your understanding of the Antichrist is one man coming into the earth, wreaking havoc, controlling governments, shooting fire out of his mouth, lasers out of his eyes, all kind of things they teach in Christianity concerning a one-man Antichrist. And what we're going to try to show you, according to the scriptures, is what the original apostles and teachers under Christ believed when it came to the topic of the Antichrist. So we're going to be touching on that in the Up and Coming Academy. Last but not least, we're going to be dealing with the true doctrine to the Gentiles. What does the Bible say concerning the mission to the Gentiles? Was there a mission to the Gentiles? Who were the Gentiles that the apostles and the disciples were sent to teach? Is it what the Christians are saying when it comes to the gospel, the New Testament, the New Covenant, that all the Israelites rejected Christ, and therefore they have been substituted for the Gentiles, and therefore now the Gentiles are God's people? And anywhere in the Bible where it says Israel, or it's the church, it's the Gentiles, it's anything but the Israelites. Okay, essentially, the backbone and the foundation of that belief is that Israel has been done away with. Well, we're going to touch on that and see if that's the case. Also, we're going to examine whether what a lot of Israelites are teaching concerning the Gentiles in the New Testament. Many Israelites believe that the Gentiles are all Israelites. We're going to test that as well to see if that is the case. And if it's not the case, then again, who are the Gentiles? What is the mission and the doctrine that must go to the Gentiles? And how will the Gentiles be saved? Can the Gentiles be saved? Well, all of that and more will be touched on in that lesson dealing with the true doctrine to the Gentiles. Again, that's in the Up and Coming Academy, February 4th or February 16th. And if you're interested, go ahead to historytimes.org, where you can get all the information you need in order to participate in the Up and Coming Academy. All right. With that, I'm going to just deal with a few of your questions here. All right. A. Garza, Elder Lawyer, can you please edify the Israelite belief on purgatory? Is it biblical or is it not? I don't think I've ever heard a teaching on that. All praises. Very good question. First, we have to get a clear understanding on what purgatory is, right? When you hear purgatory, the first thing that comes to mind is the Catholic Church, because they teach a doctrine of purgatory, right? So let's first get a clear understanding on what that is. Let me see if I can pull up something real quick that'll give us the definition of purgatory, the official definition. Then we'll go into what we believe according to the Bible. I'm not going to touch on this too much because we actually are going into hell in this week's academy. So I don't want to spoil the lesson for those who are in the academy, but I will answer your question to the best of my ability without, as I mentioned, spoiling the information for those who are in the academy. All right, so let's get purgatory. All right, let me see if I can find this. Where can I go to find the definition for purgatory? Let's see. All right, let's get a general, basic definition of purgatory. 1 second. 1 second. Let me see if I have like a Bible dictionary or something that will give me that definition. If not, I'll just go to the internet and pull it up. All right. All right, let me check here. All right, let me just go to the internet, pull something up, see if they can give us some insight on purgatory. Yes, this current academy, we are doing a lesson. In fact, this week, this Sunday, we are doing a lesson on hell. All right, so let me pull this up real quick. This is from Wikipedia. All right, so it says purgatory. Purgatory is a passing intermediate state after physical death for purifying. Let me turn my camera off so you can see it, or let me at least adjust the screen so you can see it. 1 second. There we go. All right, so purgatory is a passing intermediate state after physical death for purifying or purging a soul. A common analogy is dross being removed from gold in a furnace. In Catholic doctrine, purgatory refers to the final cleansing of those who died in the state of grace and leaves them in only the holiness necessary to enter the joy of heaven. It is entirely different from the punishment of the damned and is not related to the forgiveness of sins for salvation. A forgiven person can be freed from his unhealthy attachment to creatures, ferment, charity in this world, and otherwise by the non-vindictive temporal punishment of purgatory. Okay? So usually when you hear purgatory, especially when it's associated with the Catholic Church and their doctrine, it is the idea, in fact, I'm going to read this here. This is a compendium. This is from a compendium of the Catechism of the Catholic Church. What is purgatory? Purgatory is the state of those who die in God's friendship, assured of their eternal salvation, but who still have need of purification to enter into the happiness of heaven. Because of the common communion of the saints, it says, how can we help the souls being purified in purgatory? Because of the communion of saints, the faithful who are still pilgrims on earth are able to help the souls in purgatory by offering prayers and suffrage for them, especially the Eucharistic sacrifice. This is what I was looking for. They also help them by almsgiving, indulgences, and works of penance. So this is what Catholics believe concerning purgatory. Right? If someone dies, they are in a suspended state. Okay? And while in this state, people who are on earth, family members, friends, believers, or what have you, they can pray, offer prayers, offer indulgences, meaning there are certain offerings and payments that they can offer for the soul of a person who is in purgatory to ensure that they reach the kingdom in the end, in the final judgment, and works of penance. So the question is this what we believe concerning purgatory? And the answer is absolutely no. We do not believe that the prayers of people on earth will help determine the state or the final judgment of someone who has already been, who has passed over to the fathers. Okay? Though we may say things such as, may the Most High have mercy on the soul of that person, we understand that once they pass over to the fathers, their judgment is in the Most High's hands. There's no payment. There's no offering. There's no almsgiving. There's no work of penance that can be offered by somebody on earth that will have an effect on the final destination of someone who has passed over to the fathers. Okay? So, do we believe, now if you're asking the question, what do we believe concerning hell? Do we believe that there's a place of eternal damnation, a place of eternal judgment in which those who have sinned in this life and are unrepentant at the time of death, that a person who is in that state, will they eventually meet what is called an eternal damnation? All right. And before that eternal damnation, in the second death, the final judgment, will that person undergo torments? And yes, we believe that that is the case. Exactly. As Elder Dale said, there is no pouring out of liquor. Okay, I don't care how many bottles of Hennessy you pour out. I don't care how much Jack Daniels you pour out. Okay, Douce or whatever people drink. No matter how much of you pour out, it's not going to change the state of that person who has passed over from life into death. After that soul leaves the body, their destination is now up to the Most High. It's now in the hands of the Most High. So let's get into it. Let's just show a few scriptures. Again, I don't want to spoil it too much for those who are in the academy for this week. So I'll just touch on a few things concerning this, right? All right, so let's deal with this concept of purgatory, right? The fact that somebody on earth can change the destination of someone who has passed over. The question is, what is the determination for someone who has passed from life unto death? What determines what will happen after they have passed over? Let's go to the book of Deuteronomy chapter 30 and verse number 19. Deuteronomy 30, verse number 19. Let me pull it up so you can see it. All right. Deuteronomy 30 and 19. I call heaven and earth to record this day against you, that I have set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Therefore choose life, that both thou and thy seed may live. I'm going to read it again. I call heaven and earth to record this day against you, that I have set before you life and death. So the way of life and death have been set before us on earth. Blessing and cursing. So the way of blessing and cursing have been set before us on earth. Therefore, choose life, meaning it is up to the individual while they are living to choose the way of life. And by choosing the way of life, when it's time to pass over to the fathers, you will enter into life. You will enter into peace. If you choose the way of death, after you have passed over, then you will find your way into the path of death, or the judgment of death. Eternal damnation, right? When we talk about death, a lot of people like to deal simply on the carnal side. And this is why a lot of people don't believe in hell, because they simply deal with what happens to the physical body. Well, we understand that we have both a physical and a spiritual existence, and both must be judged. So let's get this real quick from the book of St. Matthew. I believe we're going to the 10th chapter. If not, I'll search for it real quick. St. Matthew chapter 10. And let me get it here. There we go, verse 28. St. Matthew 10 and 28. And fear not them which kill the body. So many people like to focus solely on what happens to the body. That's why they'll go to the Old Testament and they'll look at the references for hell. And the same word for hell is the same word for the grave, right? That word Sheol or Sha'awal, as we would pronounce it. That word can be translated as simply the grave, the physical grave in which a dead body is buried, but it can also refer to hell, okay? The place of your spiritual, what happens to your soul or your spirit after it leaves your body, okay? Your spirit, your body goes into a grave. Your body goes into the sepulcher. Your body goes into the tomb, but the question is what happens to your spirit? And that's the point a lot of people miss. So Christ says, fear not him which kill the body, but are not able to kill the soul, but rather fear him which is able to both destroy or able to destroy both soul and body in hell. So we have not just a body, but we also have a spirit. So again, our body goes into a physical grave. The question is what happens to our spirit? Well, we're going to get into that. Okay. Let's go real quick to St. Luke. And we believe that this is literal, right? A lot of people like to deal with this simply from the standpoint of they'll say it's a parable, so it's not literal, right? They'll say that this is simply Christ providing a parable or a lesson to those who are listening. But here's the question. When we're dealing with this topic of parables, what makes the parables relatable to the people who are listening? What makes the parables understanding or understood, rather, by the audience is the fact that Christ is speaking about things that the people know and are familiar with within their society, within their beliefs, within their doctrine, within their environment, within their communities. When Christ speaks about the parable of a sower, yes, it's a parable, but it's using something that the people could relate to in their environment, in their culture, in their society. What is that? The sowing of seeds or the planting of seeds. And what may happen to those seeds when you plant them? Some seeds, you plant them, they bring forth fruit, okay, 20-fold, 30-fold, 50-fold, 100-fold. Some seeds, you plant them, and because the earth wasn't properly prepared, wasn't properly aerated, the hole wasn't dug properly, what happens? That seed becomes unsuccessful, or that seed may become choked up by the roots. You may have some seeds that because they're not rooted properly, they're not, the earth is not dug deep enough for that seed to fully take root, and it's exposed to the heat of the sun, and the sun may scorch that seed and cause that seed to pretty much rot and not bear any fruit. And then you have seeds which they're just kind of tossed out there, and the birds may come and devour that seed. These are all concepts that the people that Christ is speaking to are familiar with, right? So even though it's a parable, even though he's telling a story, he's telling a story that the people can relate to, and he's using that to teach the concept of, the sowing of God's word, the teaching of God's word, and what that word may do once it enters the heart of whatever person that word may fall on, right? There's many other parables that Christ speak about. The parable of the virgins with the lamps, trying to get into a wedding feast, right? These are concepts that the people are familiar with. So yes, the rich man and Lazarus, which we're about to read, yes, it is a parable, but it's a concept that the people are already familiar with. It's an understanding that the people are already familiar with. When Christ came on the scene teaching about hell, this wasn't a new doctrine. This wasn't a new concept. The Israelites already had the concept of hell. Not just the physical grave or physical Sheol, but also what happens with the spirit. Okay? So let's get into this real quick. St. Luke 16, verse number 19. It says here, there was a certain rich man which was clothed in purple and fine linen and fared sumptuously every day. And there was a certain beggar named Lazarus, which was laid at his gate full of sores, and desiring to be fed with the crumbs which fell from the rich man's table. Moreover, the dogs came and licked his sores, and it came to pass that the beggar died and was carried by the angels into Abraham's bosom. Right? So now we're getting into what we believe concerning the place of torment and what the Bible calls Abraham's bosom. So we do believe that there's a place that has been severed out for the souls of the righteous, which the Bible is referring to as Abraham's bosom. And we also believe that there's a place of torment, which some may refer to as hell, right? In this case, the Greek word here, let me see what the Greek word is here. Let me go to another Bible and pull this up. We're going to get the same scripture in another Bible and see the word they use. I believe it's Hades, but I just want to make sure it's Hades in this specific reference. So let's go here. St. Luke 16. So it says, again, verse number 22 says, and it came to pass that the beggar died and was carried by the angels into Abraham's bosom. So again, we believe that this is the place in which the souls of the righteous are held until the day of judgment. The rich man also died and was buried. So we know that the rich man died, right? And it says that he was buried. The question is, what was buried? His physical body. Where was it buried? In the grave. In the physical Sheol. The physical grave, which was the destination, the temporary destination for his physical body. Okay? And I say physical or temporary destination because we know that in the end, in the final judgment, that all bodies will be raised to meet their final judgment. Right? But temporarily, until the day of final judgment, his body is kept in a physical burying place. That's the physical body. But what happened to his spirit? 23. And in hell he lift up his eyes, being in torments. Now, some people look at this again, a lot of different people. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but various organizations, various Israelites have different concepts when it comes to hell. Many Israelites conceptualize hell as a physical place on earth, right? For them, captivity is hell, all right? Prison is hell. Poverty is hell. And it sounds so good when they bring it forward. Oh, it sounds so wonderful when they tell you that you're in hell right now. You can't pay your rent. That's hell. You on food stamps, the WIC program. That's hell. You don't have enough money for the bus fare or to catch the train. Oh, you in hell. Right? Sounds wonderful. So that's how many people conceptualize it. And I must bring that out because we have people coming from different walks of life coming into the stream and maybe wondering what it is we believe, because we also believe that we are Israelites. We also identify as Israelites. So do we believe that same concept that hell is a condition on earth? And the answer is no. Okay? We believe this is a literal hell. Okay? A spiritual place, right? Which is a place of torment, a holding cell, if you will, for the spirit until the day of final judgment. So it says, in hell he lift up his eyes, being in torment, and seeth Abraham afar off. Right? So we've seen what happened with the rich man's physical body, and now we're seeing what's happening to his spirit. Right? As I mentioned, fear not he which is able to kill the body, but fear he which is able to kill both the soul and body in hell. Now we're seeing those two components, the body and the soul, and what happens to those two components once they pass over. So it says, he seeth Abraham afar off and Lazarus in his bosom. And he cried and said, Father Abraham, have mercy on me and send Lazarus, that he may dip the tip of his finger in the water and cool my tongue, for I am tormented in this flame. But Abraham said, Son, remember that thou in this lifetime receiveth good things, and likewise Lazarus evil things. But now he is comforted, and thou art tormented. And beside this, between us and you, there is a great gulf fixed, that they which would pass over from hence cannot, neither can they pass to us. That will come over from thence, Salakia. Then he said, I pray thee therefore, Father, that thou wouldst send him to my father's house. For I have 5 brethren, that he may testify unto them, lest they also come into this place of torment. Now, if purgatory was true, as is taught by the Catholic Church, that people on earth can offer, penance and offer indulgences, they can pay a price for the sins of the person who may have passed over into death, they can offer prayers, then the rich man in this case wouldn't have need to worry, right? His family members on earth, his 5 brethren that he's speaking of, can simply offer up some money, offer up some prayers, offer up some penance, do a few rituals, and now this man who is in torment, the rich man who is in torment, can eventually find his way over into the bosom of Abraham. But we see in this parable that it tells us that there is a great gulf fixed. Between us and you, there is a great gulf fixed, so that they which would pass from hence to you cannot. So there is no such thing in the Bible of someone being judged and sent into torments and eventually finding their way over to the side of peace, of profound quiet, the bosom of Abraham. There's no such thing. There's no offering that someone can do on earth to ensure the salvation of someone who has passed over. Right? Again, the scripture says, and beside all this, between us and you, there is a great gulf fixed, so that they which would pass from hence to you cannot, neither can they pass to us that would come over from thence. So there's no switch swapping of positions in the place of judgment, temporal judgment, the bosom of Abraham and torments, right? There's no such thing. So hopefully that is clear on the person who asked the question concerning purgatory. I'm not sure if they can confirm if their question was answered as to whether we believe in some form of purgatory or no. Okay, as does the Catholic Church believe. Do we believe in hell? Hopefully that answered that question as well. I'll answer one more question before we close out and make our way to Patreon. And Patreon will answer an hour, maybe an hour worth of questions. Okay. Yes, hell is a lake of eternal fire. Do not be deceived. Right? And again, people try to, they try to conceptualize it with a fleshly mind and say things such as, if something burns, if a body burns, does that body burn forever? Right? If I burn a piece of paper, will that piece of paper burn forever? Or does it burn to ashes and eventually fade away? Yeah, if you're talking about in the physical realm, absolutely. But again, we're not talking about the physical realm. We're talking about the spiritual realm. And if the Bible says that this is an eternal judgment, this is an eternal fire, which goeth not out, and that those who sin against the Most High without repentance will live in eternity in this judgment, that we must believe the Bible for what it says and not try to conceptualize the Salakia with a fleshly mind. And that's the mistake many brothers and sisters are making when it comes to this concept. Yes, the 144,000 are all men. All right, but households and things of that nature are sealed under them. Household, they are sealed under him. Yes, drug addiction is considered a sin. I'm sorry to hear that your cousin passed over. My condolences. Is the book of Esther paganism? In which way? What in the book of Esther would you consider to be paganism? All right, I'm going to take one more question before we pass over to the other side. The other side being Patreon. For those who are subscribed to Patreon, again, we're going to answer quite a few questions on the other side. But keep in mind, I got to get out of here before sundown. I'm going to try to make it out before sundown. I'm failing right now. So let me try to get at least one more question. If I can't find one, then I'll just jump over to the other side. We're going to touch on that in this week's Academy as far as the first and second judgment. Yes, there are levels of heaven. All right. There are levels of heaven. The Bible speaks of a third heaven. If I can read that real quick. In 2 Corinthians 11, and I want to say verse number 3. Okay, maybe not. Let me try 2 Corinthians 14. All right, 1 second. Yes, 2 Corinthians 12, Salakia. All right, 2 Corinthians 12 and verse number, let's see. Verse number 2. It says, I knew a man in Christ above 14 years ago, whether in the body I cannot tell, or whether out of the body I cannot tell. God knoweth. Such an one caught up to the third heaven. Right? So the fact that the Bible tells us that there's a third heaven there must be a first heaven. There must be a second heaven, meaning that, yes, there are levels of heaven. Mordecai being Murdoch is something I heard. Yeah, that's just something you heard. That ain't got nothing to do with the Bible. You know, a lot of people try to draw these parallels between, and they'll use names as a means to try to draw some type of parallel between the Bible and what they call some type of pagan figure. But here's the reality. Just like we're in captivity right now, and we received different names in this captivity, that if our parents knew better, they wouldn't have used those names, wouldn't have called us those names. Many of us will probably seek to change our name based on some of the things or some of the names that we received in this captivity. The same exact thing happened to our forefathers. So I can go through a long list right now before you of various forefathers, Israelites, who received what you would call pagan, Gentile names. But it doesn't mean that the book in which that person is referenced is exalting paganism, right? Or is exalting the worships or the teachings of the Gentiles, right? So let me just give you a few examples. Let me give you a few. 1 second. Let's go to Daniel. In fact, let's first go to Genesis. Let's go to Joseph. And let's see how this works. Right? And it's funny that someone would actually try to draw that parallel between Mordecai and Moradok, because the Bible actually condemns Moradok, the god of Babylon. So even if Mordecai, if that name was connected to Moradok, that still doesn't mean that the Bible is exalting the worship of Merodach. Even Esther, we're going to get into Esther's name, right? The woman after which that book of the Bible is named. We're going to see the origin of her name, right? But even after seeing the origin of Esther's name, it doesn't mean that the book of Esther is exalting pagan worship. Neither does it mean that Esther or Mordecai or any of the Israelites in that time period that are documented in the book of Esther worshipped or honored the Gentile worships. or follow Gentile doctrine. It's just these are Israelites who are in captivity. These are Israelites who were previously in captivity under Babylon. So through time, you may see Israelites receiving or taking on Babylonian names. I'm going to show the example of Joseph. This will be the last question because I really got to get to the other side. Okay, but this will be the last one before we jump over. All right, this is Genesis 41. And this is just an example of how this process takes place after people are subject under another nation. Right? The same thing happened to the Israelites. Now, the difference is that because the Israelites, usually when we went into captivity, we had our separate communities, we had our separate culture, we had a separate identity. So many times, even in captivity, a lot of our culture and our names would be preserved. But there are instances in which certain prominent figures amongst us would be catapulted or exalted into a high position within a particular kingdom. And because of that, they would be awarded or given a specific title or a name that was reflective of that culture in which they were exalted. So here's an example of Joseph. Okay, Joseph or Genesis 41. And let me get straight to the point. Let's see, 41. Let me get down to about 30. Let's see, 45. All right. In fact, I started verse number 42. In fact, 41, right? Because it's going to give the context. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, see, I have set thee over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand and put it on Joseph's hand and arrayed him in vestures of fine linen and put a gold chain about his neck. And he made him to ride in the second chariot which he had. And they cried before him, bow the knee, and made him ruler over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without thee shall no man lift up his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zaphnath-Paaneah. And he gave to him to wife Asenath, the daughter of Potipharah, priest of On. So we know Joseph's name is a Hebrew name, right? Joseph, Yosef, or Yawasap. Joseph, which means he shall add. Okay, he shall add, right? Identifying Joseph's fruitfulness, right? Or initially the fact that Joseph was the youngest initially before Benjamin and Jacob's old age. The Most High blessed him to add a son to his lineage, right? To his posterity. But eventually we know that this would be prophetic in the sense that Joseph would be a fruitful tribe. He's described as a fruitful bow. So Joseph, Yosef, or Yawasap means he shall add, referring to his fruitfulness, right? But that original Hebrew name was changed to Zaphnath-Paaneah. Okay? To Zaphnath-Paaneah. Or Paaneah. Or Zaphnath-Paaneah. Okay? Now check this out. Of Egyptian derivation. So even though Joseph was an Israelite who worshiped the God of Israel, when he went into Egypt and initially went in as a servant that was raised up to a prominent position, his name was changed into an Egyptian name, an Egyptian-derived name. Okay, now the meaning of the name is treasury, according to this source, treasury of the glorious rest. Okay, so it's not necessarily pagan, but it's still a name of Egyptian origin. So, does this now mean that Joseph is a pagan? Does this now mean that Joseph is worshiping the gods of the Gentiles? or that Genesis 41 should not be read because Joseph's name was changed to a Gentile name? The answer is no. All right, let's get a few more examples. All right, and then we'll get to Esther, right? And we'll see what her name means. All right, let's look at Gideon. All right, let me get to his birth. Okay, maybe I'm thinking of someone else. All right, let's see. I may be thinking of someone else whose name was, when they were born, was like Baal or something like that. Okay, I may be thinking of someone else. But yes, you had Israelites that had all kinds of names. Oh, here it is. Jerubbaal. This is Judges 7:1. Then Jerubbaal, who is Gideon. So one of Gideon's names was Jerubbaal. Yerubbaal, or Yorah-Baal. Baal will contend. Okay, this is one of Gideon's names. Right? Now, does this mean that Gideon exalted Baal? No. Does this mean that Gideon was a worshiper of Baal? No. Okay? But that was one of the names of Gideon. Also, Baal. Let me look at Baal real quick. You have Baal, which means simply Lord, right? And there's examples of men being referred to, like when you go into the English Bible, you may see a man being referred to as Lord, but in the English, but when you go back to the Hebrew, it's Baal, because one of the translations, one of the uses of Baal is simply Lord or husband. But the Canaanites took that particular name, that name Baal, and used it to refer to one of their gods, one of their chief gods, Baal. Okay? So there is a difference between the two. It's the same word, okay? One meaning is in reference to just simply a husband or a man, and one reference is to the god of the Canaanites. Okay, here's the feminine form. Baala, a mistress. Okay, so this is the feminine form of Baal. Okay, a mistress, a woman. Okay, a mistress, a female owner. It can also refer to a sorceress, a necromancer. Okay, so these are the ways that this word can be translated. And the same thing goes for Baal. Okay, check this out. Baal, a master, hence a husband or owner, right? Archer, babbler, chief, captain, right? So let's do a search on this. Let's see if we can get any examples of it simply being used for a husband or a man. All right, I'm going to do this real quick. I'm going to move on to the next one. Dealing with not Jerubbaal. That's not the one we're looking for. We're looking for, let me pull that up again. We are looking for H1167. That's what we're looking for. So let me do a search on that. So here's this. Here it is. Genesis 20:3. It says, and Abraham said of Sarah, his wife, she is my sister, and Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent and took Sarah, But God came to Abimelech in a dream by night and said to him, Behold, thou art but a dead man, for the woman which thou hast taken, for she is a man's wife. But Abimelech had not come near her, and he said, Lord, wilt thou also slay also a righteous nation? Said he, Salakia, said he not unto me, she is my sister. And she, even herself, said, he is my brother. In the integrity of my heart and in the innocency of my hands have I done this. So when we look at man, okay, you see the translation is Baal or Baal, which means master, husband, or what have you. So in this case, Abraham is being referred to as a Baal, a master, a husband, a man. Okay? So there are multiple usages for the term Baal, right? But the point I'm making, just going back to the original point, you see several references here. This is Deuteronomy 24:4. Her former husband. You see husband highlighted green. Husband there is Baal or Baal, right? Which means Lord, right? The Canaanites, again, they took that term Baal and used it to refer to their chief deity. They referred to him as what? A Lord, a master. Okay? So again, I'm showing you that there are prominent figures in the Bible, prophets and otherwise, who have names that are associated with what we would consider Gentile gods, Gentile worships. But it doesn't mean that that particular person, in the case of Gideon, worshipped false deities or worshiped pagan gods. And it surely doesn't mean that we shouldn't read the book of Judges, the 7th chapter, because in it, Gideon's name is associated with Jerubbaal, okay? Which again means, Jerubbaal means, Baal will contend. Okay? Let's get another one. Let's go to Daniel. All right, so Daniel 1 and verse number, let's see. Let's start at verse number 3. Daniel 1 and 3. And the king spake unto Ashpenaz, the master of his eunuchs, that he should bring certain of the children of Israel, and of the king's seed, and of the princes, children in whom was no blemish, but well favored and skillful in all wisdom, and cunning in knowledge, and understanding science, such as had ability in them to stand in the king's palace, in whom they might teach the learning and the tongue of the Chaldeans. And the king appointed them with a daily provision of the king's meat. So I'm going to jump down. So these are Israelites. These are young Israelites who were pulled out from amongst the population of Israel, right? Because of their ability, their skill, their wisdom, their knowledge, right? The king of Babylon wanted the wise of all those who were subject to him to operate amongst his eunuchs, to be his counselors, right? And his wise men. So when the Israelites were taken over into the land of Babylon, they, from amongst them, were taken what? Their most skillful, their most, prestigious, their wisest, right? Their most astute, right? So Daniel and the three holy children, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, just so happened to be amongst that number. So verse number 6 says, Now among these were the children of Judah, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. So these are their Hebrew names. These are their original names. So you got Daniel, Danya Allah, right? Meaning God will judge, or judge of God. You got Hananiah, Hananiah, okay, which means God has favored. Mishael, Mayash Allah, which means who is or what is God. Okay? And you got Azariah, Isaiah, meaning the help of God. Okay? So these are their Israelite names. But what happens when they go into captivity? Verse number 7. Unto whom the prince of the eunuchs gave names, for he gave unto Daniel the name of Belteshazzar. Now, what does Belteshazzar mean? Belteshazzar means Lord of the straiten's treasure. Okay? Lord of the straiten's treasure. And I believe the Lord portion goes back to Bel, a god of the Babylonians. Okay? So his name was changed in captivity. Hananiah was changed to Shadrach. Okay? Which means royal or the great scribe. And then you have Meshach, or to Mishael, his name was changed to Meshach, which means guest of a king. And you have Azariah, whose name was changed to Abednego, which means servant of Nebo. Now, was Abednego, was he a servant of Nebo? No, he was a servant of the Most High God, the God of the Israelites. But in captivity, his name was changed to Abednego. Right? Am I making sense to you all? Is this clear? I want to make sure I'm clear before we move forward. All right. Exactly. Like our names were changed in captivity. Okay. I want to make sure I'm clear, especially to the person who asked the question. All right. The app I'm using for this is called the Bible by Olive Tree. Whatever operating system you're using, whether it's Mac or Apple, or what's the other one? Windows, just go to whatever. Like if you're using Mac, just go to the App Store for Mac. If you're using Windows, just go to the App Store that's used for Windows, type in Olive Tree, or just simply go online and go into type in Olive Tree or Bible by Olive Tree, and you should be able to download it for either Mac or Windows. Okay, so the person who asked the question understands. Okay, great. Okay, so these are just examples of our people going into captivity and being assigned these various names, right? So let's get to Esther, okay? Because Esther, yes, Esther's captivity name, okay, let's get to Esther. Her captivity name is a Gentile-influenced name. Right? Let's get to Esther. Right? Esther. Okay? We are going to the book of Esther, chapter 2, verse number 7. Let's look up Mordecai real quick. Let's look up the meaning of Mordecai. Okay, little man, or they also have the translation worshiper of Mars. Okay, so those are the two possible translations for Mordecai that they have here. Right? Now, was Mordecai a worshiper of Mars? Absolutely not. We're going to show you how we know both Esther as well as Mordecai worshiped the God of Israel. But let's get to Esther real quick. Esther chapter 2, verse number 7. And he brought up Hadassah, that is Esther. So we know her Hebrew name is Hadassah, right? Meaning myrtle. And a lot of sisters in Israel have this particular name, Hadassah. But in captivity, her name is changed to what? Esther, Astar, which means star. Okay? So in captivity, she gets what? A Gentile influenced name. Excuse me. So how do we know Mordecai did not worship Mars or any other pagan god for that matter? When we go to the book of Esther, the 3rd chapter, it tells us about Haman the Agagite. I'm going to start in verse 2. It says, "And all the king's servants that were in the king's gate bowed and reverenced Haman, for the king had so commanded concerning him. But Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence." So if Mordecai was accustomed to bowing before false gods or worshiping false gods, he would have no problem with worshiping or bowing to Haman the Agagite. Why? Because he would have already, why wouldn't he have a problem if he worshiped false gods? Well, by worshiping false gods, he had already belittled himself from this ideal, this concept of worshiping one God, bowing to one God, giving praise and honor to one God. But because he held that concept, because he held that precept and that commandment of bowing to God only, we see in this case that this is what prevented him from bowing down to another man, Haman the Agagite. So we know for sure that he didn't worship Mars or any other false god. Also, when Haman put forward the decree to have the Israelites killed, we know that Haman counseled Esther to do what? To go and pray, fast, and pray to the God of Israel. Okay? So we know exactly what God they worshiped, even though their name was that of Gentile origin. Okay? In the New Testament, I don't have time to get into the New Testament, you have Apollo, right? In fact, let me read that real quick because it tells us something very, very key about Apollos. Okay, let's get to Apollos in the book of Acts. All right, let's see what it tells us about Apollos in Acts, I believe 19. It says here, I'm going to start in 18 and 24. I'll just read that one. Acts 18 and 24. "And a certain Jew named Apollos." Let's highlight Apollos. Let's click on that and see what that says. Apollos means given by Apollo. Who is Apollo? A Greek god. So check this out. It says, "And a certain Jew named Apollos, born at Alexandria, an eloquent man and mighty in the scriptures, came to Ephesus. This man was instructed in the way of the Lord." So does he have a pagan name? Yes. Did he worship a pagan god? No. All right. It tells us that this man was well instructed in the way of the Lord. So I'm making this point to say that if the person is saying that you shouldn't read the book of Esther because of Mordecai's name, then let's not stop at the book of Esther. Let's go throughout all of the scriptures in the Old and New Testament and all the chapters, all the books in the Old and New Testament and say, let us abstain from these because the Israelites within these books or in these chapters or in these verses have Gentile or pagan names. Let's avoid the book of Acts, the 17th chapter, when it speaks of an Israelite named Apollos, because his name is a Gentile pagan name. As you can see, that doesn't necessarily make any sense. Okay? These are Israelites who are in captivity. These are Israelites who are scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. And because of that, many cases they take on the names of the people under which they're subjected. Right? So hopefully that answered the question. Okay. Hopefully that answers your question. With that, I'm going to transition to the other side. And hopefully the few questions that we did answer on the side edified those who are listening, as well as those who are happening upon this in the future. Again, for those who are interested in the upcoming academy, we do have an academy this February 16th. So if you're interested, go to historytimes.org, and there you'll have all the information you need to enroll. Brothers and sisters, until next time, in fact, if it be the Most High's will, we will see you tomorrow for the Sabbath. And after that, for those who are in the academy, we will see you there as well. But again, until next time, I'm going to say bless you all and shalom.
The Bible. Is it hard to understand?
When it comes to reading the Bible, the first thing that comes to mind is the fact that this is the Word of God.
The seals have been broken, and the truth is here.
And when we go throughout the scriptures, when we go throughout extra biblical records, we find that the language that God employed, that He used to create the heavens and the earth, was the Hebrew language.
Christ said, I came for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. But yet no one, no religious leader, no religious church out there anywhere can now identify the 12 tribes of Israel. Can we? God is quite simple, but it seems as if man makes understanding Him hard.
What are those mysteries?
The truth of your book and the truth will make you free. The Hebrew and Bible Academy, you're invited.